All right, so let's begin the show with our very special segment called Meet Your Fund Manager. And today our focus is on Tata Nifty India Tourism Index. I have with me Anand Vardarajan, CBO, Tata Asset Management. Anand, good evening and welcome to the show. So a theme that's been in vogue and trend since post-pandemic almost, and we were just waiting for something on these lines to come up in active way. But yeah, we've got a passive fund under tourism. So I just wanted to understand, since we're talking about tourism sector and we're talking about a passive fund, an index fund, what exactly is the exposure? Looking at very few names, that might just come under this sector. So in terms of allocations, in terms of exposure, what kind of companies and what kind of sectors are we talking about?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Firstly, I think if you were to think about tourism, it has the entire landscape of tourism, right from airports to um, airlines, baggage companies, hotels, resorts, QSR companies, even travel booking companies are a part of the entire spectrum. That largely constitutes the index. We'll have roughly about 17 odd stocks uh, in the index, and that's what we have, which cuts across some of these sectors, like I mentioned.
All right, Anand, one basic question which, obviously once we saw these kind of funds coming up uh, 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 for investors, we have a flexibility to invest through direct stocks or through funds. Now, if you're looking at exposure and talking about the names involved in the particular fund, what kind of investor should buy what? Looking at the kind of sectors, and these sector specific exposure might also be there in maybe a pure large cap or a mid cap. So if one has to really decide in terms of buying a fund or buying direct stocks under the same sector, what would be good and who should be opting it for what?
Yes, you're right. I think investors have both the options of either buying individual stocks or they could buy the entire index. I think the way to think about it is if you understand the sector, if you think because the sector itself comprises of many subsectors, like I just outlined in terms of QSR or hotel or aviation, and booking companies, luggage companies, and so on. Uh, I think there's an opportunity within these subsectors also. And if the investor is able to pick stocks within the sectors, I think it works. It's like choosing between a la carte and simple thali, if you were to think about it. If you know pretty much what you want, I think you can buy it in quantities that you like. But if you like that as a sector overall, I think then it just gives you a simple representation of all subsectors with mouth-sized bites through mutual funds. I think that becomes a very interesting option for clients to look at.
Anand, what is the house view in terms of growth in this sector? Since we have a passive way to invest in this particular sector via your fund, there has to be some kind of a growth outlook that you might have pegged down. So, what is it?
So again, very constructive on tourism as a sector. If you were to look at what is happening, I think post COVID, we've seen travel really picking up. The first part of travel, one could have attributed to a lot of revenge travel, as it used to be called popularly then. But subsequently, the travel has become far more structured. So we are very convinced about the turn of events in travel and tourism industry. Uh, if you were to look at what is happening, I think overall the industry last year did about $214 billion was the contribution to the entire services sector, which makes it one of the large sectors in the services space. And what we are seeing is, if you were to look at airport footfalls, it's increasing. Aviation has grown about 10 odd percent. Hotel occupancy rates have gone up meaningfully. I think we are somewhere close to multi-year high in terms of hotel occupancy rates. So all these we believe are a big shift and augurs bodes well for the industry as a whole.
What could be the risk involved in this particular sector and having a separate fund in your portfolio, be it a passive category? But there has to be some kind of risk involved. So, what are the red flags that one might want to consider before giving this particular diversification to their portfolio?
I think one has to be mindful that this is, of course, a cyclical sector. I think in economic boom period, the sector tends to do well. One has to be mindful that the sector also has multiple layers of travel and tourism. So, if you were to look at it, there is business travel, there is leisure travel, there is pilgrimage travel, there's medical travel, so on and so forth. So it's not just one type of travel, but it's quite layered. But if you were to think about the sector, it's a cyclical business, and what we are seeing is a shift in consumption and behavior pattern, which is really a much larger trend that we are seeing because of course, a wealth effect, income effect. We're seeing that obviously disposable income has gone up, and to that extent, we are seeing that it is going into discretionary spends, and travel tourism happens to be one of them. But that having said, one has to be mindful of valuations. One has to be mindful of cyclicality of such businesses at the time of investing.
All right, thank you so much, Anand, for being on the show and helping our viewers understand everything about this particular tourism fund.
There comes a time when your heart calls for you to arise. Plant your feet solid into the ground. Decide your own limits. And then break right through them. Become something more. It's my time to rise.